over to the stove. When I line it up, there's a little indentation right here on my pan, and that indentation lines up with a place on my lid that needs to face this direction. So I put that right there so I'll have the right alignment. I next put the lid on, and this little arrow right here is where it lines up with that indentation into the side of the canner. So line that up, and the little notches, well, they're not really notches, but the little ear pieces that here lock into the place where each of the screw downs are. So line that up. Make sure the space between your lid and your pan is even all the way around. After you do that, lift each one of the screw downs. After you've made sure your spacing is good all the way around, tighten down opposite nuts. Make them even, then go to another opposite pair, and then this opposite pair, making sure that your lid is screwed down evenly and fairly tight. As your canner heats up, you'll start feeling hot steam come out of this hole right here, this little spout. When you do that, when it first starts, set your timer 10 minutes. Letting the steam come out of here is called venting, and it lets any air that's in there escape before you seal your canner up. You may have to turn your burner down because there's no sense in letting it come out too hard, but after it warms up a little bit, you could turn your burner down to maybe about medium high. Well, our time's up. 10 minutes is up from letting it vent. So the next thing I'm going to do is put the weight on. With this canner, it has a 5, a 10, and a 15-pound choice. For tomatoes, I'm going to use 10 pounds, and the weight just sets right down on there. Then you wait until this starts jiggling and the gauge gets up to 10 pounds, but mostly till this starts jiggling, and then you start turning your burner down a little bit until this stops jiggling all the time. The pressure amount has gotten up to 10 pounds. The little weight is starting to jiggle. First thing I'm going to do is set my timer for 25 minutes because that's how long it takes for tomatoes to be processed at 10 pounds and quarts. And then I'll start inching my burner down a little bit. I expect I'll probably take it down to about 5. That's usually where it works, where it will jiggle about every 15 seconds is what it's recommended. I will sometimes hope to get it a little lower because I want to get my burner down as low as I can to conserve energy. Use my stove element as little as possible. So now we let it go for the allotted time, and we'll get back with you when that's done. We're counting down the last few seconds. Turn off the timer. Turn off the burner. I've got a plate set over here that I'm going to pick this thing up and set it over here. Very heavy. Now I'm going to let that cool. Actually, I'm going to let it cool for quite a while because I have to go somewhere and I'll be gone. But when I get back home, I'm going to open it up and show you how it did inside there. I made it back home after about an hour and a half. The gauge has dropped to 0. The canner's cooled down a little bit, but it's still really hot. Let's see what's going on in there. First, I'll take the weight off, set it aside, and then I'll unscrew opposite clamps. Drop all them down. I'll carefully take the lid off. There they are. Let's test to see if they're sealed. That one right there isn't sealed, but we'll give it a little bit of time and see if it does. I hope it does, but sometimes they don't all seal. I've spread a towel out here on the counter, and I'll take the jars out. I've got this tool here, jar lifter. The solids tend to float to the top and the liquid down to the bottom. After it cools, I like to shake it up. I probably don't shake it up on all of them, but I like to shake it up. You can see how the solids kind of suck up to the top, up to the lid. That's part of why you don't want to fill it fuller than 1 inch. But here's this one that didn't seal, and I can tell by looking at it that it's not going to seal because it didn't suck the solids up to the top. It's got actually the liquids right here on the top part of the surface. So for some reason that one didn't seal. I don't know if it had something in it that caused a place that the rubber couldn't seal down to the top of the jar, or what happened, but that's the kind of thing that happens when you're canning. Well, I made it through another tomato canning year, and we've got a lot put away. I expect I won't do any next year, maybe even not the next year, but it's really nice to have these tomatoes on hand. There are 3 basic things that I like to do with the tomatoes. I like to make chili, I like to make spaghetti sauce, and then I like to make homemade tomato soup. And to do the homemade tomato soup, I take a jar of tomatoes, dump it into 2-quart maybe saucepan, crush it up with a potato masher, and add some kind of seasoning to it, whether it's Cajun or a steak seasoning or whatever it is that you like and would like for your tomato soup to taste like. I boil that for a little bit, and then I add about half a teaspoon of baking soda to that, because the tomatoes are acidic, and this tomato soup has milk in it. If you add the milk before you add the baking soda, it will curdle your milk. So you add that amount of baking soda. You don't want to add too much because it might change the flavor. Whenever you add the baking soda, the tomatoes bubble up and you have to stir them down. So after the foam has settled down, you've stirred it out, then I dump in a can of evaporated milk, 1 can of evaporated milk to 1 jar of tomatoes. And it's the best tomato soup we have ever eaten. Thanks for joining us on the Neil's Homestead and coming along with me as I finish up my tomato canning season. See you next time.